Hi, I'm Arianna Warsaw-Fan Rauch, author of the book Declassified, and I'm really happy to be here today answering some questions for the amazing Boulder Bookstore. Briefly, Declassified is a book about classical music. It's a really fun guide, and it follows also a narrative arc. So each chapter is framed by a story from my life and my development, my training as a classical violinist, my time at Juilliard. And then in the middle, there are really fun and really informative excursions into various topics relating to classical music.
What inspired you to write this book?
I've loved classical music my whole life, and I was really lucky to be exposed to it from an early age and to feel like I was entitled to this music because my dad was a pianist. But there are a lot of people who I think feel like this music isn't for them. Everyone should feel that they have the right to listen to this music. And unfortunately, one of the things that's happened with the industry, and just the way that it's built, is that a lot of people feel excluded from it. Between Hollywood using Eine kleine Nachtmusik and Vivaldi's Spring for every snobby party scene or stuffy wedding scene.
Okay. Other than the one that you just mentioned, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about the world of classical music?
I think classical music itself is a misconception. It's just not a genre. It's imagine telling someone that if they wanted to like Beyonce, they also had to like Nickelback, or if someone wanted to like Bobby Darin's early rock, they also had to like Metallica. You're allowed with all music to pick and choose, and the music that's lumped together, it's not just one style, it's many styles, and they're so different. I mean, Shostakovich sounds nothing like Bach, and this sounds nothing like Bartok, which sounds nothing like Brahms. And I think that it really does the genre a disservice to try to make it into one entity.
What are a few things people should know about when attending a concert, especially that you find they typically don't know?
I do have a whole section on concert etiquette because I want people to feel comfortable if they do decide to listen to music at a live venue, which they don't have to. They're more than welcome to listen to music at home. But I do feel like it's nice for them to know when to clap. I think it's a source of confusion for so many people. The way that these classical pieces are built, and the fact that there are so many different forms, there are so many different mediums like opera, symphonies, there are chamber pieces, and they're all constructed differently, and it's sometimes really confusing for people. And I think that's a pretty big deterrent for attending these concerts. So I do think that that's something that is helpful, hopefully. I also talk about how, if you're in a concert and you really have to pee, then it's nice to know how the pieces are built so you can decide whether you can wait until the whole piece is over before you have to get up and use the bathroom, or whether you should go in between movements. Or
What is it like to be a musician at the highest level?
So it's there's also a chapter, there's quite a bit in the book about my time at Juilliard and doing international competitions. And I do think that, for instance, the level of competition is both more shocking and less shocking than you would expect. There's a story about the razor blades that are supposed to be hidden between the keys in Juilliard. And this kind of competition, for me, I never encountered this in the industry. I actually found people to be pretty supportive, but there is an intense competition that goes on with oneself. So you know that there are just very few spots and that there are so many talented people, and it's just so much pressure. And there were people who spent whole nights sleeping on the Juilliard 4th floor so that they could practice until closing time, and first thing in the morning make sure they had a practice room. Some of them practiced through the night. And yeah, I practiced through all kinds of medical emergencies, and I know other people who did too. It's just you get yourself into this mindset. It's pretty unhealthy.
What is one of your favorite composers, and who is a composer you love?
So one of my favorite composers, it's impossible to choose just one, but I mean, Beethoven. Beethoven's pretty amazing. Look, he's on the cover, looking awesome. I think with Beethoven you also he had within his own canon, there are so many different styles, and I find all of them fantastic. In terms of a composer that I loathe, I don't want to single anyone out, so I'll just say the whole medieval period was horrible for me. I really I go after that period a lot in my book. It's just such depressing music, and I know there are a lot of people who like it, and I want them to like it. I think that's the whole point. Everyone should choose what they like for themselves. But for me, it's just unbearable, and I would rather never. If I ever hear another piece of medieval music again, it will be too soon.
What are a couple books you read during the pandemic that you really loved?
For me, during the pandemic, I had 2 small kids who were with me on lockdown while I was trying to write this book, so I didn't have a ton of time for recreational reading, but I did read some amazing books. How to Be an Anti-Racist was amazing. I thought that it was just so well constructed and just really impressive from start to finish. And Jeremy Denk's Every Good Boy Does Fine. And I reread a bunch of P.G. Wodehouse, Jeeves and Wooster stories because I think you really need that kind of humor during a pandemic. Tons of kids' books. I mean, lots of Dr. Seuss. Oh, The Places You'll Go. I remember, I was reading that while I was sort of waiting for the book deal to come through and trying to put the proposal together. And I remember when I got to this waiting place in that book, it made me cry because I really felt like that was me, like I was stuck in this waiting place and I needed to get out of it. And all of these, Room and the Broom, The Gruffalo, these are some amazing kids' books.
Is there anything else you want us to know about your book?
I tried to create something with my book that was different from anything that I'd seen out in the world. I really want this book to be fun reading and to also be informative. It's quite detailed. It's not a classical music for dummies book, but it does have an element of that in that it's built for people who don't know about music. So it explains everything, but it just goes into detail so that you come away with quite a deep understanding of a lot of this material. I also want people to know that it's funny. There are some poignant moments in it, but it's really not, I think it's unexpected, I hope.
Can you read us a short passage from your book?
Yeah. So in the introduction, I make a case for why people should care about classical music. And these are the reasons that I list. Reason number 1, it matters. Everyone knows it's a critical time for civil rights, democracy, and public health. These things matter, but so does art. Not only does it remind us of our ability as people to create beauty in spite of life's chaos and strife, it pushes us to look beyond our basic needs and instincts, many of which cause, through the fear they engender, the conflicts of our modern society. It also offers a ground for connectivity, a kind of meeting place that's set apart from these conflicts. Just as critically, art can be its own form of protest, empowering the voiceless and enabling change. The classical repertoire contains pieces that were composed to inspire camaraderie, to rebel against injustices, and to champion the downtrodden. Of course, many of the great classical works have also been used to support and glorify existing power structures, to elevate one group above the rest. Think of what's happening now. The entire repertoire is seen as a collection of anthems for white privilege, exemption, and entitlement. I'd like to see these pieces used instead as anthems of unification. I'd like to tear down the walls of elitism and privilege that have kept the industry so isolated and misunderstood and whitewashed. Because this music deserves it. Because you deserve it. And because nothing, not respect, not the protection of the law, not education, not music, should be reserved for one small group that sets itself above the rest. Reason number 2, the inside jokes. In The Spy Who Loved Me, the villain Karl Stromberg indecorously drops his female assistant into a shark tank. He executes the feat from the comfort of his gilded dining room, where he observes her fluid struggle through a blue-tinged window as the strains of Bach's Third Orchestral Suite echo over the sound system. The woman's graceful kicks are no match for the shark's aggressive poking at her crotch. In the 70s, sharks could still get away with that kind of thing. And soon she is left dead and dressless, as we always knew she would be, floating tragically in her underwear. The window into the aquarium is replaced by Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, a must for any neoclassical subaqueous residence, and the scene is over. What's funny about all this, beyond the obvious hilarity of a person being eaten by a shark, is that the second movement of Bach's third orchestral suite, which continues serenely throughout the scene, is known popularly as air on the G string. A G string, for those of you who don't know, can either be the lowest string on a violin or a less comfortable version of a thong. There's also another reason, which is maybe my favorite, but you'll have to buy the book for that.